Before we go there, though, I'd like to go back to 1142
Oh, okay.
with the formation of the Confederacy. Confederacy is the word that's used today, and it's used by the English after the United States Constitution came into effect, and history gets written down in the words of that day. When the five nations, the Mohawks, the Oneidas, Onondagas, the Hugus, and the Senecas came together in 1142, we did not form a confederacy. We formed the Haudenosaunee. There is no Onondaga word for confederacy. But we formed a union of five nations together and pledged that we would live from this day forward in peace. And this we have done. The Mohawks and the Onondagas have not been at war with each other since for 1142. There's been disagreements between individuals, but as nations we have not fought against each other. There's much to be learned on how we as a people can learn to coexist from our elders. And so when the Europeans came over into our territory in the dates that Bob mentioned and settled, they came into what is now known as New York. They came up the Hudson River, settled in what is now Albany, Rensselaer, Troy, New Amsterdam, Rotterdam. Wonder where they're getting these names from. These were the Dutch people that were coming up into our territory. They came into our territory, and we, as I said, we did not form a confederacy. Did not form a confederacy. We formed, or what was formed was Haudenosaunee, people of the Longhouse. Our house extended from Mohawk territory into Seneca territory. Each one of us with our own little rooms in the house. And in the center of this house was the Onondagas, the fire keepers of this long house. We still are the fire keepers of the Haudenosaunee. When all of the nations meet together to discuss issues, they meet at Onondaga, at the Longhouse of the Onondagas. We watched as these people came into our territory, or the Mohawks did, wondered who they were and what they were doing in our house. So a messenger was sent to Onondaga to inform us of what was going on, and something should be done about it. So a meeting was held at Onondaga, and we, under the process and procedure that was laid down in 1142 by the peacemakers to how we will meet, how we will greet each other, how we will conduct ourselves, all laid down way back then. And the process and procedure that was laid down then laid the foundation for us today to say we are sovereign people. It's tough to sit and go through this line of history without jumping around. I've never been able to do this anyway. I tried it once before. I got so lost. I didn't know where I was. I ended up talking for 3 hours on one sentence. I kept going over the same thing over and over again. Anyway, the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse were looking at these people that were moving into their house. And so we sent a delegation up there to talk with these people. And there they were, these people with funny clothes, hair on their face, no color in their skins, they were white, they had blue eyes. We never seen people like this, and they talked funny. And so we said, somehow or other, our ancestors were able to talk with these people and found out that they had come from across the waters, and we knew that they were coming. And we did know that they were going to be destructive. What we didn't know is how destructive they were going to be. But we sat with them and said, you're welcome into our house. You can live in our house under these conditions. And we laid down the conditions for these people to come into our territory. I don't know how many days we sat there and talked about how this would be, but we agreed that we would coexist, we would live together, respecting each other as people. As we knew that these individuals were people because they walked around like us. They spoke in a language we didn't understand, but they had their ways. They had their leaders. We had our leaders, so we said, well, we can live together. And this is how we will live together. We set down rules and regulations for that, of coexisting. And while this is going on, various topics are discussed. And since they had come up the Hudson River in a ship with big sails on it, and we were paddling around in a canoe, and they had guns, they had iron kettles, we had buckets made out of bark, they had silver buckles, we had deerskin, and hadn't got into metal yet. And so, because they thought that they were superior, they said, well, we will meet, and you'll refer to us as Father, and we'll call you Son. And we said, no, that's not too good. We know what fathers can do to sons, so it has to be different than this one. From this day forward, we will call each other brother. So that was agreed upon. So when we met, we referred to each other as brothers. And they said, well, we have a way of recording such events such as this. So we'll write this all down on a piece of paper, a pencil and paper, and write it down. And we said, well, that's very good that you have a way of recording. So we also have a way of recording. And we'll put this down in a belt. And we think that in the future, we will still have our belt, but you will not have your piece of paper. Because paper is very thin. It's not very heavy. Wind will blow it away. But our belts are such that they will last forever. And so they said, all right, you record it your way, we record it our way. And so from 1613, when this happened, I can show you our record of that event. Where's your piece of paper? Have you ever seen it? Have you read about it? No? Well, anyway, this is a belt that is made out of white beads representing peace and truth. One of the purple rows of beads represents those people that were settling up in Albany. Represents their boat, their sail, their government, their religions, and so forth. The other row of beads represents the Haudenosaunee in their canoe, their leaders, their governments, and their way of life. It's separated by 3 rows of beads. The 3 rows of beads are peace and friendship, or peace, friendship, and the 3rd row is forever. And not sure as how these people are going to understand forever. Our ancestors said, we'll explain forever to you. This agreement that we're going to live by will last as long as the grass is green, as long as the water flows downhill, and as long as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. I know driving around today, I noticed that the grass is still green. The sun came up on the east this morning and it's setting in the west at 7:30 this evening. So this agreement is still in effect. We will coexist together on Mother Earth, respecting each other as a people. We will respect the environment. We will take care of the environment. And we will never pass a law telling the other person what to do or how to live. The Haudenosaunee have never violated this. We have never told the European people that in our territory how they should live or where they could go, where they couldn't do, or what their religion should be. On the other hand, New York State and all the other states of the United States and the United States itself has written all kinds of laws that prohibit us from practicing our way of life. It stops us from going to sacred sites. I know that you people know about the Black Hills, the sacred site of the Lakotas. They are prohibited from going there to practice their ceremonies. And that's a violation of this concept and this idea. The people of today are not following this concept. We recognized you when you came into our territory as a people with different ways, different concepts, different governments. And we said, well, we can work with you, we can live together in peace and harmony. But 400 years later, you've lost your paper and you don't treat the Native people as a people. Don't recognize them as someone with human rights. This has to change. And that's why I'm out here speaking about this, because the Creator gave us a mind to think. And with this mind, He said, you can sit down, and if you have a dispute, you can sit down and resolve your dispute without going to war or having fights in that kind of manner. And so I had mentioned before that the members of the member nations of the Haudenosaunee have not fought against each other all of these years. And I said, we have to look at natural laws, natural world. And if we look at animals in the woods, we see deer, bear, rabbits, pheasants, partridge, mink, muskrats, beavers, all coexisting together on Mother Earth, each one with their own separate ways and their own territory. And these are the animals of the forest. We, the brilliant species of the animal world, in all of these years, have not been able to learn how to live together in peace and harmony and recognize our differences. We're always trying to change people, change boundary lines. This is not the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to recognize our differences and respect those differences, but live together in peace and harmony. And that's what this spell is about. This is not happening. When George Washington sent Sullivan into Onondaga to destroy our villages, the Haudenosaunee named him Onondaga, which means town destroyer. And every president of the United States since that time carries that name. We wrote a letter to George Bush last couple of years ago about some concerns and violations of our treaties, and we put the date on, And then we wrote Onondaga. Underneath that, we wrote President of the United States, of White House, Washington, D.C., and his zip code number and so forth. Then we said, greetings, brother. But if you look at the history of your presidents of the United States and look at the name Town Destroyer, I think you will find that the name fits. It's all of these presidents, and Bob can probably tell you more about, or lists the presidents that have destroyed towns and countries. And they dropped a bomb on Japan and wiped out thousands of people in a whole town. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and most recently George Bush is into Iraq. I don't know whether you people pay attention to the news or not. I do. And sometimes these reporters are so much into the news that they don't hear the news. What's that expression? You couldn't see the forest because of the trees? On July 21st, Channel 5 makes this report. The Japanese have manufactured a new toy. They call it puppy soccer. And you can sit with this machine and run dogs around and they play soccer. And the reporter says, United States government is examining this toy to see whether the mechanism of this toy can be used in a future war. And I said, wow, that's interesting. And so that ends our report for today. Thank you. We'll be back at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I went, wait a minute. You put out a news item, but you didn't finish. What agency is studying that toy? Department of War? Department of State? Justice Department? Department of Interior? Tell me which one is doing that. They never reported. And further, what country is the United States thinking about going to war with? I guess we got that answered yesterday when they announced that they're going to attack Iran. And I'm going, wow, you're going to attack Iran? You haven't finished with Iraq. You haven't finished up one without, you got to finish up one before you do the next one. But anyway, I'm still waiting for Channel 5 to come out with answers to that. I talked to Dick Case when he came out to visit with me, and I've known Dick for a number of years also. And I told him about that, and I thought maybe he would put it in his paper, but that didn't happen. I talked to Mike McAndrew that wrote the article in this morning's paper about that, but editors of the Post-Standard aren't interested in that. It's something that hasn't happened yet, and so. But I think we have to be aware of what these people are reporting, because what the report is something that's going to come in the future. Now, Bob, I mentioned that the Europeans came up the Hudson River and settled in our house. And